Hey, everybody. It's Seth Eisenberg, and we're in the conservative corner. I hope you all had a good weekend, or at least a non-busy weekend. I know the work week's coming up again, back to the grind. I can hardly wait for that. It's just the highlight of my life, Monday mornings. Um, so I have a guest. I'm going to bring her on in a second because we're going to be kind of pressed for time. I don't want to have to keep her longer than she needs to be. And I want to just address this right now. I know a lot of people have said, hey, this is Frederick County. Why do I care? Because what's going on in Frederick County public schools, I can guarantee you, is going on across the nation. Don't let just because it's not your county or your state fool you for 1 second into thinking that it's not going on across the nation. Because if that's what you truly believe, you're just not paying attention. So let me get her on. I'll let her introduce herself. And then if you have any questions, just post them here and we'll ask her. Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. I'll let you introduce yourself because I don't want to missay something or not put something in. So go ahead, introduce yourself, and then we'll just start asking questions.
All right, perfect. Hi, everybody. My name is Jamie Brennan. I am a candidate for Frederick County Public Schools Board of Education. I am a mom of 2 high schoolers. I am a former Board of Trustees member for Frederick Classical Charter School. I am a CPA by profession. And so I am running, hopefully, to make a difference in our school system, bring it back to sanity a little bit.
And like I was just saying a second ago, that I don't think people need to be worried about where you're running because the same issues we have here, I'm sure they've got in their school system. It's not just here in Maryland, it's across the country, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
So why'd you want to start running for board education? What got you interested in that mess?
So I was involved in ever since my kids started school in education and education philosophy. And so eventually we found Frederick Classical Charter School and we registered our kids for that. That's one of our 4 charter schools that we have in Frederick County. I registered my kids there. They were going there. And over time, I volunteered a ton. And they asked me ultimately to join the Board of Trustees. And for a while, I was also the acting treasurer. And I really got to see behind the educational curtain a little bit there. And I didn't like what I saw. FCPS was so dysfunctional. Dealing with the charters was so hard. They were, did everything they could to undermine us. Just a lot of bad management of the system is what I saw. And then COVID happened. And then I watched as our district forced our kids to stay home. Then they forced the masks on them, when they finally did start to let them back. And then they tried to coerce our student athletes and our, drama students and, the kids that participated in extracurriculars. They tried to coerce them into taking the vaccine when those who were of age at the time in order to participate in activities. And so at that time, I was the original founding chapter chair for the Frederick County chapter Moms for Liberty. And at that time, our chapter really pushed back against that. We had already been, active in trying to get masking off the kids. And then they started on this. And, even after all that, as much as I was convinced that our system was going in the wrong direction and there were so many problems, I wasn't convinced to step in. But ultimately, nobody was. And I'm a big Dan Bongino fan. And Dan is always saying the do matters. And eventually I looked around and I was like, wow. Somebody's got to do it. It might as well be me. And so that's what I.
So I know but I don't know if anybody else knows that's watching. I ran for board of education, same county in 2018, and have never seen such a shit show in my entire life. I've never been called more names and screamed at and yelled at and accused of stuff I've never done, and that was just for the school board. And I thought it was ridiculous. I really did. I was like, you people need to calm down. But I do realize now that one of the most important elections and anywhere in this country is the Board of Education. That's where everything starts. If you've got like the BLM and the Antifa, those are products of public school systems. that don't know what the hell
Yeah.
is going on and don't know what to do. So what do you think the big things, and not just like I said, this just isn't Frederick County, it's everywhere. So what do you think the big
It's
challenge, the
everywhere.
number one challenge, what do you think the number one challenge is for the Board of Education? What would you say, hey, they've got to fix this?
Well, we got to fix our academics. I mean, our academics are terrible, and that is across the board everywhere. And these are institutions run by the teachers union, and the teachers union has no motivation to fix academics, because as long as academics are terrible, as long as our schools are failing, they have a reason to beat the drum for more money, for the more this, for more that. And look, I am totally on board with paying our teachers as the degreed professionals they are. Absolutely. But that's not what we're talking about here. And that's not what the union will fight for, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
The growth of administration and administration jobs is off the charts. And when we look at our budget, which is almost $1 billion here in Frederick County,
it's what, 995 million?
Yeah, and 900.
Yeah.
I think they settled on 35. I haven't. I didn't go
Oh,
back and
that's
check
nice.
the final. They wanted like 989, and they whittled that down a little bit. So, but after that, that's going in administration. That's going in other things.
Oh,
That
yeah.
is not even our capital budget. Like the
No.
capital improvements is a whole other budget. So you just feel like we're not investing in our students, and we really need to start to focus. I mean, that's what schools are for, and it needs to be about focusing on the academics and the
Oh, yeah.
career readiness.
I think Frederick County, and I'm not sure about other counties, but I know Frederick County's reading score for fourth graders, I think last year was like only 47% were proficient, but the graduation rate from fourth grade to fifth grade was 98%. So they're in essence passing children to the next grade that aren't ready for the next grade.
Sure.
So that's, and I'm sure, again, that's across the world. That's not across just here. But another big thing I think a lot of parents are concerned about, and I'm sure you are too, is the boys and girls sports, and boys in the locker rooms, and boys in the girls' bathrooms. And in Frederick County, that's called Policy 443, that allows students, and correct me if I'm wrong, to change their gender throughout the day. I can start the day being Seth at lunch. Now I'm Jill. I can go to the girls' bathroom, and then at the end of the day, I'm back to Seth. And they can't tell my parents. They won't notify my parents of what's going on. What's the feedback you've been getting from parents since you've been kind of campaigning and talking to people? What's the overall feeling on that?
Well, I mean, so many parents don't know. And I will tell you that, like, I didn't know about 443. It was passed in 2019. I've been very active in the school system and schools, and I didn't know they had passed such an egregious policy. So one thing is, a lot of our parents don't know, but as soon as they know, they're furious. They're like, how can this possibly happen? Why did they do this? When did this happen? And so then we kind of got to start talking about how, we had activist board members,
Mm-hmm.
and they implemented this policy. And I mean, nobody, part of the issue is nobody wants the boys and girls sports.
Right.
That's wrong. I was a student athlete. I played tennis. I played in one of the sports that actually is a co-ed sport. The teams we play in high school and college are men's and women's. But even at like the US Open, there is a mixed doubles. I mean, that is its whole other thing, where
Right.
men and women play on the same court. And anybody who's played mixed doubles will tell you it is an absolutely different game than women's tennis. Okay. So I know just from personal experience of playing against the boys is, you don't win. You don't win. And it's dangerous and risky. There's some women that won't play because, they don't want to take risk getting, an overhead to the face and things like that. I mean, that kind of stuff happens. And so now we're talking about doing that among all of our women's sports. And, that's just not something that parents want. They don't want boys in their locker rooms and in their bathrooms and their private spaces. They don't want them rooming together on field trips. So parents really are not into that. And then the other component that really is egregious, because some people will say, well, that's the policy, but nobody's actually doing that, right? So we're not going to worry about it right now because we don't currently have that situation happening where it's gotten publicized. But the other thing is the really egregious part, which even those parents don't like, is that they can have all these conversations with your child behind your back and never tell you. They target children. They identify children to start having these conversations. In the state of Maryland, and this varies over the country, but here in Maryland, you only have to be 12 years old to consent to getting mental health care on your own without parental knowledge. So you could have teachers and schools referring kids to, gender affirming services when the parents would, might have their children in other therapy to combat, concerns and issues they're having. And the school actively work to undermine whatever that other therapy is. I mean, they're basically playing pop psychology on our kids. And it's really egregious.
I mean, what's really scary is I've watched some of the BOE meetings on TV because I'm afraid if I go there, I'm going to get chucked out because I'm not just going to sit there and go, excuse me, can I talk now? But I've seen some people who call themselves parents that are actually arguing for that to be okay. Like, it's okay if there's a boy in my daughter's locker room. It's fine because he doesn't think he's a boy. He thinks he's a girl. And I've never been so appalled by some parents than I have by watching some of those meetings. I just don't understand how that's okay. Do I think if these guys go into the locker rooms are all going to be rapists and assault people? No, but that's not the point. The point is there's a boys' locker room. That's where they belong, and the girls belong in the girls' locker room. And if you have to, have like a unisex locker room if that makes you feel better. But they shouldn't be into the girls' locker room or bathrooms. I don't agree with that at all. I don't see a need for it. And another big thing in Frederick, and I'm sure again across the country, is pornography in the school libraries. I've seen, and Cindy Rose. Cindy Rose has been bringing that up a lot and trying to fight with Nancy Allen, who's also on the Board of Education. Some of the books that that talked about actually have anal sex, same-sex anal sex in there, oral sex, hand jobs, rape, incest, and these are in books that go as low as middle school. So again, and like I said, you've been out and about. What have parents been saying to you about that? Where do they like? Are they furious? They're like, oh well, it's just books.
It's soup to nuts. As the parents who know what the books are, and have actually been following real information or are actually shown what the topics are, they're not for it. And I know somebody had done like a little man on the street in Frederick County not that long ago, who was saying like, well, what about this book? And, showing books with illustrations of sex acts. And even the parents who were like, no, we're against book banning. We're like, yeah, I don't think that's appropriate in the school, And look, age appropriate material in our schools is not book banning. No. Okay. I don't necessarily, some of the books, everybody's going to have different opinions.
Right.
But as a parent, what gets me is I have parental controls on the devices in my house. Okay. I have parental controls on my kids' phones, on the internet, on our Wi-Fi, on the television, whatever I can do to monitor and to eliminate sexual and pervasively vulgar content in my own home, I do it. Okay. And so as a parent, I don't think that my kids are going to go to school and encounter that in the school library. Okay. And so if it wouldn't pass my parental filters at home, I don't see why it's got to be available to children at school. You have all the stuff you want in the public library. I'm not a fan of any of it. I don't think anybody should be checking it out for their kids, but you do you. But when I'm talking school and as parents, particularly parents of faith, are sending their children to school, we already know that our kids are bombarded by all the stuff that's just in our modern culture. But you at least think that like they're not going to encounter pornography or a how-to guide to have, alternative sex acts at the school.
I agree.
I think that maybe that would be a place that they wouldn't encounter that material.
I've always wanted to ask the parents that are okay with it if they would be okay with them installing a pole in the school library and allowing strippers to come in periodically through the day.
Don't give them any ideas. Don't give them any ideas, okay?
I mean, I firmly believe some of these parents read penthouse letters to their kids at night before they go to bed. I mean, some of the stuff that Cindy Rose and I've read myself is I'm a sailor and I blush.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Some of that stuff is hardcore, and that's in middle schools.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's unacceptable, but, and they don't have the courage. This is what really irritates me, because they just had another meeting on Nancy and Cindy's appeal.
Right.
And they did it all behind the scenes, all closed, because they will not stand in front of the public and have the public tell them what, talk about the actual pervasively vulgar and sexually explicit materials and justify that to those parents. Okay. And it's really hard. Look, I have a 17-year-old, and I can tell you what, in our household, I can count on one hand the number of times he's seen R-rated movies. We don't do it. We don't engage in content that's, and I'm not the only household that's like this. Okay. Right. And so I don't, like I said, parents don't expect that at school, this is where they'll find this material,
So what do you say to the parents, like I've seen at some of these meetings, that are defending that are calling it a book ban? And, I don't want somebody choosing what my son or daughter reads. They need to stay out of the schools. How do you respond to them?
Well, nobody is stopping you from providing any information to your children, okay? But how are you protecting my child, okay? How is the school system protecting my child from vulgar and sexually explicit information, okay? So if we're gonna argue and say, okay, they are insisting that this materials need to be made available. Okay, fine. How are you going to stop my kid from having it? Because I don't want my kid to have it. I do not give my child permission to have your pornography. Okay. And my child's still under the age of 18. So how are you going to prevent that? And then you get things like, well, we could not, we could have a list of what you can't check out. And you know what I mean? But then I'm like, well, that's fine. The ALA opposes that. Right. What books are we going to assign there? Who's going to make the critique up for the books that aren't allowed to be checked out by everybody? Right. Like, you know what I mean? And so on one hand, they're like, well, my kid should be whatever. I'm like, that's fine. But how are you protecting my kid? Because I sent my kid to school expecting to be protected and have their innocence preserved. And so and they never have an answer for that.
No.
And like I said, nobody's stopping. I'm like, whatever. Yeah. You do you. We have been very intentional about the way we've raised our children, but I'm not here to raise anybody else's kid. I just want to protect my child from that material, and other parents who want to protect their children from that material. And we have the right to do that too. So how are you balancing that? And they can never answer that question.
I don't think they can answer it, not because they don't want to, it's because they can't, because they realize that your argument is based in common sense. And anything they say back to that will make them look like a bigger fool than they already look. So they just, it's okay. We'll just make a list. You're going to make a list, but you can't teach kids to read. You can't teach kids to do math. You can't teach kids what bathrooms they should use, but you're going to maintain a list that's going to change every year, and it's going to be accurate, and you're going to enforce it. Bullshit. You're not going to be able to do it. You can't do the basics. You're not going to be able to do anything extra.
Sure.
And yeah, like you said earlier about the teachers union, I think they're like the mafia. I really do. They do what they want to do. And if you don't like it, they strike. Every year they want more money from you. You get nothing in return. I think they got to go. I really don't. Like you said, they're not helping students. They're there to help themselves.
No, you look at who's leading those organizations. Randy Weingarten is one of the leaders of is the leader of the AFT. We're associated with NEA, but she doesn't have children.
No.
You don't. It is a different world when you're a parent. And I would say that even when I was younger, before I had children, I had a much more different attitude. I definitely had a different attitude but then you see things like we would pull out movies that I remember watching as a kid. And then we go like, oh, this would be fun. We'll turn it on for the kids. Like, I loved this movie when I was 10. And I'm like, no, we're not watching this movie. Like, what the, like, what were my parents thinking?
But I think it was a different time back then. I think parents were more involved. So you could watch those kind of movies because mom and dad were there. It wasn't just like teacher putting in some crap and then leaving the room to go smoke cigarettes and pay their union dues. I think it was a little different, but I agree. And that's another thing I want to ask you. Parent involvement is a big thing. Mm-hmm. From what I've been reading, and definitely from what I see in Frederick County Public Schools, and I get the impression that the Board of Education and other places really don't want parents involved. They want you just to be quiet, listen to what we say, and then do what we want, and then just go away. Mm-hmm. What do you think should change? How would you change things if you get on the board and they said, hey, you could do any one thing with parents? What would the first thing you'd do? What would you do to get them involved?
Well, that's a good question. I think regular notices, like a newsletter, a recap of board decisions, and would help, because I think a lot of the stuff that happens is done through like the consent agenda, which are things they've already kind of agreed upon, and then they just come through and they just vote on it, but there's no public discussion.
Right.
So I think that if we told parents, hey, they just voted on this thing, they just voted on that thing, I think you'd get a lot more people who are like, wait, what? Where did this happen? So I think that driving that, but I also think just reaching out, because, like I said, a lot of it happens in secrecy. A lot of it happens because people aren't sounding the alarm. And, Nancy's good about sounding the alarm, but I think if there's more of us sounding the alarm constantly, we would have more engagement. And I also think making sure that we have policies that welcome parents onto our campuses.
Oh, yeah.
Not just like when everybody's going to put their best foot forward on like, Grandparents' Day or Moms with Muffins or whatever, where everybody's like all shiny and happy and aren't we all in a good mood? And like, like really see the nuts and bolts of what happens on the daily. And I think parents would have a big different opinion.
Yeah. When I ran, that was one of the things me and Cindy, because I ran with her. That's one of the things we wanted to implement, is parents allowed to go to class with their students or kids, or come in and have lunch with their kids. That didn't have to be scheduled, didn't have to be approved. You want to have lunch with your kid, you just show up at lunchtime and sit with your kid. And that meant a lot of resistance from a lot of morons in Frederick County, because, parents have no business in the school. They're not teachers. They're not professionals. That's going to interrupt the day. You know what? Who cares? If my son's in that school and you're telling me I can't go see him, now I want to know why I can't go see him. What are you doing that I can't see?
And I think that that's the difference a little bit with the charters, because, my kids went to the charter school. My daughter started in first grade. My son transferred over when he was in fourth grade. That's when we could get him in. And as a parent at the charter schools, you have got to volunteer a lot. Like our library was completely parent run. A friend of mine at the time was running that library. And so I would help with the library. Our band program was completely parent run after school, after the first year. So, I was there, every day after school, on every day that had band, to help facilitate that. And you're just there a lot. There's a lot more things. There's a lot more opportunity. And because it's sort of run, it's run by an independent group, they just they're able to come in and have more parent involvement. So I was accustomed to way more of that all the way through middle school. But I know that from my friends, like they never go to middle school, like after elementary school and after a few little things, like they don't really want the parents there, kind of thing.
Yeah, they kind of shun you, like you don't need to be here. Yeah. And again, like my son's 14, I doubt he'd be happy to see me walking into school. I don't think he'd be hip to that at this age. Like, oh my God, get out of here! You're embarrassing me. And then, of course, I would give him a hug and a kiss and go, "Oh, I love you so much," and just embarrass the hell out of him. That's probably why he wouldn't let me in. And one last thing, because I know you got to go here. Tenure is a big issue. My opinion on tenure is you should never have a job and feel comfortable you can do whatever you want and not get fired. I don't think there should be tenure for teachers. There's no job in the world that you should be able to keep no matter what you do. What's your opinion on that?
I mean, I didn't realize, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm familiar with tenure from the college level and to some degree the public school. I kind of thought it was a little bit more than, there was more you could do to get booted out. But I agree. I mean, generally speaking, we don't want anybody to just get so complacent in their job that they don't have to continue to produce results in order to keep it. You know what I mean? So I certainly think that that's something worth looking at and making sure that we're not rewarding. We want to reward excellence and longevity. We do want to do that, but at the same time, we don't want it to where it can be abused.
Right. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot with this. I was just curious to know what you thought, because I don't care what they think about me. Fire them all. If you can't do the job, you're fired. You've been here 2 days or 20 years. You can't cut it anymore. You got to go. Yeah. I mean, especially in teaching, you're responsible for molding the mind of children. If you can't do it, you need to go and make room for somebody who can, in my opinion.
Right.
There's no room for error, or very little error in that profession, because you're going to ruin kids' lives. All right, I know you got to go in a couple of minutes, so what I'll do is I'll give it to you. Cover what you want to talk about. If you have a website or a Facebook page, put that out there. Let them know. Just talk about you. It's all about you now for 2 minutes.
Oh, wow. Thanks. So our schools, and not just here in Frederick County, for the schools all over the country, are at tipping points. And I cannot stress enough to anybody who's not here in Frederick County to investigate the candidates for your own Board of Education and really find out where they stand on positions, because our system is in such dire straits. Most of our kids, even here in a wealthy county, our proficiency rates hover around 50%. And that is across the board in this country. Most systems are like ours, even wealthy systems. And people will come to me and say all the time, "Oh, the schools are great here in Frederick County." No, they're not. And Maryland is losing ground and has lost ground since I was a student. I'm a lifelong Marylander, since I was a student. So, gosh, please investigate these races, and then make sure that you're investing in candidates who, my positions are, I support academic excellence. I want school options for our kids. I want more charters. I want to invest in our career and technology center. Our schools need to be safe. Okay. Parents need to be in the driver's seat. Make sure you're helping candidates like that out. If for anybody who wants to learn more about me or reach out to me, my website is Brennan for Board, BRENNAN board.com. My email address is jbrennan@jb4boe.com. Had to think about that for a second. And I have a fundraiser for those of you who are in Frederick County. I have a fundraiser coming up on September 19th. Please check out my website for information on that if you want to come out and support us. We'd love to have you. And please, the school boards are really some of your most important races. Even if you do not have children or grandchildren in the system, in any county in this country, they are a gigantic portion of your county's budget, which means they're a gigantic portion of your property taxes. So pay attention to the people that you're electing. And if they're supported by the Apple ballot, if they're on the Apple ballot, which is the union supported candidates, please look at your other options and make other choices.
Oh, definitely. Well, Jamie, thanks for coming on. And when you get more time, you should come back on and we can get more into other things and make fun of people.
I'd be happy to. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it so much.
All right. Your pleasure having on. Like I said, when you get some more time, let me know. We'll get you back on here.
I will. Thank you. All
You're welcome. Well, have a good evening, and I'm sure I'll talk to you again soon.
right. Thanks. Take
All
care.
righty. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, everybody. That was Jamie Bren. She's running for BOE in Frederick County Board of Education. She's a conservative candidate. And here, at least in Frederick County and in Maryland, Board of Education candidates are nonpartisan, so they don't put a party affiliation on their name on the ballot. But I know her. She's a very conservative lady. And like she said, the Board of Education races are extremely important, not just because of the amount of money they get, but because of what they do. Those are the ones that teach the kids to what kind of people they should be, and learn and have them read things. I mean, look at like I was saying earlier, the Black Lives Matter, and look at Antifa. Those are products of public schools. They're morons. They have no idea what they're protesting. They have no idea why they're protesting it, but they're out there burning and putting and looting and hurting people. That's public school system for you. Run on feelings. If it feels good, do it. I mean, you've got pornography in the schools, like she was saying. It's reading scores are down, math scores are down. Overall, the morale of people in the school building is down. You've got to be very careful who you vote for. I would strongly suggest if you're going to vote for school board candidates, I would go as conservative as they can get the most conservative people on the board. Those are the ones that seem to care about the kids. You got the woke fools that don't care about kids and want to just, let people do what they want to do. Like I said, if it feels good, do it. That's kind of the policy they have. And it's ridiculous. That's not going to help kids grow up at all. Or it's not going to help them grow up to be productive people or even sane people. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I've come up with some things here on my own. I've got notes. I took notes this time on some of the issues I think facing schools across the country. A reason why public school systems are in the toilet like they are. The number one thing is I think they're emphasizing and teaching to tests. They're not teaching for kids to learn. They're teaching them to pass tests. So when the test is passed, they've got nothing, nothing else to teach. It's all about the tests. Standard 9 tests. I know people who are brilliant, just very, very smart people, but can't test well. They get test anxiety. And according to schools, they're not smart. They didn't pass this test. We need to put them in, remedial classes to learn. No, testing doesn't show you anything. All testing does is tell you that you can retain information. Doesn't mean you learned it. Doesn't mean you understand it. It means you memorized it. So teaching the tests shows nothing, which explains why most school districts' reading and math scores are down, because when you spend all this time teaching kids to take a test, you're not teaching what they need to know. You're teaching what they have to know to make the school system and the school area look good. So I think teaching to standardized testing has done more harm than good. I think another thing that weighs on kids' minds, and they may not tell you, but it does, is school safety. I mean, every time you turn on the news, there's somebody shooting somebody to school or something's going on. And if you don't think kids are paying attention to that, you're crazy. we have to acknowledge that there's a problem and then let the kids know that, hey, you don't got to worry about it. We're going to take steps to help you. When I ran for board education, one of my big platforms was school safety. School safety is like an onion. There has to be layers to it. It can't just be one thing like, oh, we have cameras. Oh, we have an SRO, school resource officer. Or we have doors that lock. No, it has to be a multitude of things to work. You just can't throw up a camera and go, okay, the school's secure. We don't got to worry about it anymore. It's not how it works. The best idea for schools is you have officers in the schools. You have cameras in the schools. You have doors that lock. You have the camera system that's sent directly to the local police department, so both people can look at it, officers and the school. So if something happens, the officers already know and they're dispatching people out there. There's lots of things that need to be done. I'm not a big fan of metal detectors at school, and I'll explain why. Because number one, that means you have to have somebody manning those metal detectors while people are coming in and out of the school. That means you have everybody coming into one point in the morning. And if there's going to be a school shooting, they're going to go where everybody's at. And they're going to be all up front trying to get to the metal detectors. They have to be maintained. They're very expensive. And I think that gives more of a prison atmosphere to the school than it does a learning atmosphere. So I'm not a big fan of metal detectors. Doesn't mean I won't listen to arguments for them. I'm just not a real big fan after looking into them now. I just think it's intimidating. Let's be honest. School sucks for kids. They don't want to be there. We don't want to add more things that make it suck worse. We gotta make them enjoy learning. They gotta have fun going to school. And going through metal detector is crazy. I think wanding students randomly in the school is fine. And I also think there should be school uniforms. And I think all backpacks and anything that holds stuff in the school should be clear so everybody can see what's in the bag. I mean, these little things will help, but it has to be a multitude of things. It can't just be one thing and then, hey, the school's fine, we're good. That's not how things work, unfortunately. I'm going to take a quick break so we can pay the bills, and I will be right back.
Born in the coastal plains of South Texas, Smoking Gun Coffee is founded by combat veterans that know exactly what a cup of coffee needs to taste like. Run by father and son, each coffee bean is perfected, roasted at 500 degrees, and cooled with a Gulf Coast breeze. Smoking Gun Coffee hand makes and bags each ounce of coffee for maximum customer satisfaction. With every purchase, 10% goes back to organizations that help veterans and local communities. That's Texas made, one bag at a time. To find out more, go to www.smokingguncoffee.com.
If you go to smokingguncoffee.com, you go to the drop menu, you can jump in the coffee club, and you can get conservative corner coffee, cup full of piping hot, steamy freedom. So get yourself a bag of that. Let me know my taste. I like it. Find out if you like it. Also, if you're commenting, I'm not ignoring you. I'm responding, but apparently I can only respond to certain things. So I'm seeing what you're writing. I'm not ignoring you. Please don't think that. Ravenwolf, let me put that up here so I can see, everybody can see. How would wanding or clear backpack, wondering how that would make them feel. There comes a point where we got to stop worrying about how people feel and do what's right. And until we can figure out a way to get the people problem solved, because it's not a gun problem, it's a people problem. Guns don't kill people. Sick, twisted people kill people. Until then, we got to do what we got to do to keep kids safe. And like I said, previous podcast, as a parent, I'm not here to be the kid's friend. I'm not here to make them love me. I'm here to do what's right by them, whether they like it or not. And if that means I got to wand them or I got to have them put a clear backpack on and then it upsets them, they'll live, they'll get over it. And when they get older, they'll understand it. Sometimes you got to be a little inconvenienced. Just the world we live in. So back to what I was talking about. Another issue I think in schools that has gotten worse since I've been in school is bullying. I think the reason bullying has gotten worse is because, number one, there's a zero tolerance policy. I think it's blanket across the country. Zero tolerance policy protects the bullies because it's just like in football. The first guy that shoves doesn't get the flag. It's the guy that shoves back. So if they're bullying, they're not going to get caught. You get caught when you fight back and you get sent to the principal's office, you get suspended, but nothing happens to the bully. I don't agree with zero tolerance policies. I think they should be scrapped across the country. I think if you're a bully and you bully someone, you should get the snot knocked out of you and get your nose broken. That's the only way some bullies learn. It's a sad fact of life that some people only learn through violence and pain. I don't think defending yourself should ever get you in trouble. I don't think you should get suspended. I don't think anything should happen to you. I think you should go right back to class. I think the bully whose nose you just broke should get suspended. It's really that simple. I don't condone bullying from childhood to adults. I don't think highly of anybody who's a bully. I don't condone it, and I don't stand for it when I see it. I think bullies are vampires. They suck on people who are weaker than them because they know if they pick on somebody who's just like them, they'll get their asses kicked. I don't like bullies. Get rid of the zero tolerance policy in schools. It's not helping the victims. Let people defend themselves. Because if I walk out of my house right now, or if you walk out of your house right now, and somebody comes up to you in a parking lot and punches you in the chest, you have every right to defend yourself. Why shouldn't a child? Why should we teach children you have no right to defend yourself? You have to stand there and take the beating and hope a teacher comes over to help you or hopes you can flag one down. Because if you fight back, we're going to suspend you. I don't agree with that at all. Not at all. We're raising a nation of victims. And it's not fair. I've told my son, and I used to tell my daughter when she was in school, if you get picked on, you have my permission to do what you have to do to defend yourself. It's that simple. But if I find out you're bullying people, you're in more trouble than you could ever imagine. But if you're defending yourself, you do what you have to do to defend yourself. It's that simple. We don't tell adults, run away. Run away from that guy. Try to find a police officer. We don't tell people that. We tell them you defend yourself. I think we should relay that message to children as well. And I've also told my kids that when they're defending themselves, it's not WWE time. We're not putting chairs over people's heads or suplexing them or whatever it is. You defend yourself and then get out of the situation and go tell a teacher. But never, ever stand there and take a beating because there's no teacher around to help you. It's that simple. I hate bullies. I really hate bullies. I think another issue in public schools that needs to be addressed is material has been dumbed down. There's no more high bar. It's let's give them, 2 + 2 is what? 4. Great. Now you got an A in math. Great. Let's put you into 10th grade math now. Ships rise to the level of the water. So if we expect more from kids, we're going to get more from them. If we expect less, we'll get less. We need to raise the bar. We need to expect more from them in school. This goes back to the testing or teaching to the standardized testing. That needs to stop. It really does. We need to get back to the basics because the school systems aren't teaching the basics. They can't teach them right. Reading, writing, math, science, history. Let's focus on those for a while. Let's get those averages above 40 to 50% for proficiency. Let's get them up to 70 or 80. Hell, let's go for 90. Let's live crazy and try 90% because that's what helps people become well-rounded when they get into the real world. Not, hey, I learned in school I can use whatever bathroom I want to use as long as I change my name and I don't have to tell my parents. Or I can be any sex I want to because it's malleable and I can change at the whim. That doesn't help people at all. That doesn't do anything for them when they get out into the real world. Nothing. So let's get back to basics. We need to get school boards back to basics. Like Jamie Brennan was talking about earlier, academic excellence. Let's get back to that. Let's make that important. Let's make that the focus. Let's not worry about if Johnny wants to be Jill and go to the girls' bathroom. Let's worry about, can Johnny even read the sign on the bathroom door that says boys or girls? Let's be worried about that right now because we're not doing a good job. We're failing our kids at that. And I'm sure everybody will agree with this. I think the biggest, hugest, most insane problem in public schools that I see is indoctrination. They are not teaching kids anything like I just said. They are teaching them social justice crap, woke crap that will not serve them in any way, shape, or form in the real world. It really won't. Knowing that Johnny has, and I'm picking on Johnny a lot. I'm sorry. If your name is Johnny, don't take it personally. Who cares if Johnny has 2 dads or 2 moms? That doesn't affect me at all. I don't need to know that. That's not important information. What's important is multiplication, reading, history. Those things are important. Not who's got 2 moms or 2 dads or who wears a dress at school and they're they, them, or z's. None of that matters. It's not important. All that is done is they teach that to make themselves feel good, the teachers and the unions. That makes them feel good. Kids don't care. It's like when they teach about race. Kids learn about race from their parents. I know kids that don't care. If you're a friend, you're a friend. You could have 7 arms and 3 eyes and be green. They don't care. If you play with them, you're a buddy. So let them figure that out on their own. And if we stay out of it as adults, they're going to be just fine when it comes to that kind of thing. They're going to be just fine dealing with people of different colors. They're going to be just fine dealing with people with different sexes who have different sexual orientations. They're going to be just fine because kids don't care. They don't care. We make them care. We force it on them and tell them this is important that Johnny has 2 dads, and that doesn't make him any different. Until you told little Paul that, he didn't give it. He just thought Johnny was his buddy. He didn't care about his 2 dads. He's probably been to his house and not even thought about it. But now you've put it in his head that he needs to know because that's important when it's really not. So let's let kids be kids. Stop trying to indoctrinate them into social justice crap or woke stuff that's not going to serve them at all. Not going to do them any good at all in the real world. Because I've never been to an interview in the real world. And I've never been asked, do I know my neighbor's children? Do they have 2 dads or 2 moms? Or what are my pronouns? I've never been asked that in a job interview. Never been asked. Never asked anybody that when I've interviewed them for positions when I've been in that position. Because it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Can you read? Can you write? Can you do math? Can you be punctual? Are you respectful? That's important. That's important. That's just my opinion, though. And I'm looking at here. I'm just. Yeah. And I agree with that, Raven Wolf. I mean, you have to, if you expect little from kids, and I've said it before, you're going to get little back. So we need to expect the kids are a lot more smart than we give them credit for. I mean, let's be honest. They really are, especially in this day and age. They've got the internet. They can learn about anything in the world at their fingertips. Everything. And they're far more advanced than I was at their age. I was eating mud and playing in the rain when I was their age. Nothing that there's anything wrong with that. Different time, different, era, but they are more technologically savvy. So we got to stop treating them like they're morons or they don't understand this. And I'm guilty of that with my son. I do stupid stuff because I think he's a kid. I don't give him credit for what he knows. So let's get back to raising that bar. And I think we'll be shocked at the results if we expect a little bit more out of kids. It's really that simple. You treat them like they're stupid, they're going to come back stupid. And another thing that I'm big on, homeschooling. I think homeschooling is the answer to all these issues. And I know a lot of people say, well, I can't homeschool. I don't know what to do. I know in this community, there are homeschool schools. People who homeschool and have like a school of homeschool students at their house. And they actually pay a teacher to teach, but they give that teacher the curriculum they want taught and how they want it taught. So they're being taught by someone who knows how to teach. They're at homeschool and the parents have direct control over the curriculum. I think that's incredible. I think the only way we're going to get change in the public schools is if we hit them in the wallet. And the only way you can hit them in the wallet is pull your kids out because they get funding per student. They start losing students, they're going to start losing funding, and they're going to have to start listening and making some changes. It's that simple. So yeah, homeschool whenever you can. I think homeschooling is awesome. I see nothing wrong with it. Studies have shown homeschool students graduate from college at a higher rate. They do better on testing. Not that that's important than public school counterparts. They are more well-adjusted. They are a multitude of things. They do better than public school students. So if you can, homeschool. Really look into it. I don't think it's as hard as people make it out to. I mean, the public schools make it out to be impossible because they don't want to. Because like I just said, your kid comes out, they lose money. So of course they're going to tell you homeschooling sucks. They're weird kids. They're never going to get into a good college, yada, yada, yada. Ignore them. Ignore that because homeschool kids do very, very well. And like I said, if you can do it, do it. It'll pay dividends. It's a good thing. I know kids are homeschooled and I've got no problem with them. They're smart kids. I really like them. Yep, I agree with that, Raven Wolf. They should learn how to budget, life skills, things like that. I completely agree with that. Yeah, it's not easy, but it's doable with family support. I completely agree. Nothing worth doing is easy. And that's what I try to teach my kids. And that's what you should teach your kids. If it's worth doing, it's going to take some effort. And it's going to be a little bit tough. It's just the way life is. You want something, you got to work for it. No one's going to give it to you. But yeah, and anything's doable if you've got support. That's across the board. Doesn't mean just school, anything. You got a good family behind you that supports you and believes in you. You're going to move mountains, kid. It's that simple. You're going to just do it. Yep, online college is pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of things you don't have to be in the mainstream with public education to get done and done correctly. Just keep that in mind. If you can't get your kid out of public school, I completely understand that. But like Jamie was saying, be involved. Go to your Board of Education meetings. See what they're talking about. See what they're doing. Go to your kid's school and have lunch with them. Let the school, the principal and the secretaries and the teachers know who you are. When they have parent-teacher conferences, be there. Be an active participant in the education process. Don't ignore it. Don't be too busy. Be there. Be that parent. That's the best thing you can do is be present. That avoids a lot of conflict, like Jamie was saying. Schools don't want parents involved, and the more they don't want you involved, the more you should try to get involved because there's a reason they don't want you there. Fight fight for it. I used to go to my son's school when he was in elementary school through 5th grade 2 or 3 times a week to have lunch with him. And to, walking back to his class after lunch, the teacher saw me. That way the teachers know that I'm involved. I'm there. I am present. You're not going to slide anything by me. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to talk to my son. My ex was the same way, very involved. That's how you have to be. And yes, it's different now than when I was in school. I mean, when I was in school, we had to ride horses to school because they hadn't invented the internal combustible engine yet. So we had, no, I'm not that old, but it was different. I mean, I remember going to the school where I went that there were guys that hunt and they have guns on their gun rack in their trucks on school property. And teachers would actually go out with the students during lunch to look at their guns, and nobody cared. It was no thing. People got off to go hunting. People who were volunteer firefighters got to leave school if there was a call. I mean, things were different. There was respect, and there was an understanding that you're in school to learn. You learn, and you get out and you do what you got to do, but you got to come back. I mean, things have changed. Now that you go to school and it's a party, they got drum circles. You can use whatever bathroom you want to use. They don't have punishment anymore. They have restorative justice, which doesn't work. And I'll talk about that another time, but it doesn't work. There's no way to qualify that at all, because all the teachers and principals have to do is stop writing down somebody got in trouble, and then they can go, look, it works perfectly. No one's been in trouble in a while. It's a bullshit thing that, again, rewards bullies and people who do wrong and punishes the victims. But I'll talk about that at another time. Talking about school board, had Jamie on. We're getting close to election season, local. I know we have an election coming up November 5th for a bunch of things locally and nationally. So one of the things I want to talk about are the fly-by-night politicians. And let me explain what I mean. There are politicians now that you see everywhere on Facebook or whatever social media you follow, talking about how they're involved in this or what they think about that and how they're going to do this and yada, 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 yada. Where were those politicians last year when it wasn't close to election time? What were they doing then? They didn't care about anything then. Now all of a sudden they got to be known. They got, I'm doing this and I did this and this and this. Those are the kind of politicians you need to get away from. They don't care about you. They care about their position and getting higher in the food chain. Stay away from them. You want politicians that have been consistent, that you know what they've been doing in off election years. That's what you want. Not the ones that all of a sudden are popping up everywhere talking about everything and who they support and how they support this person and are riding on Trump's coattails like, go Trump. These are the people you don't want to be around, because that's not what they don't feel that way. They're playing the odds. So stay away from them. And you can go on Facebook at any time and see what I'm talking about. You're going to see these people everywhere posting 35, 40 times a day, when in the past you didn't hear a word from them. But now they got stuff to say. No, they want your vote is what they want, and they're going to do whatever they can. Stay away from people like that. And if you're in Maryland, anybody who supports Larry Hogan, you should run away from like they have the plague. Avoid them. Don't vote for Hogan. Don't vote for any of his sycophants that are using him to raise money. Don't vote for anybody associated with Hogan. I can't stress that enough. He's not a Republican. He's not even a rhino. He's a Democrat. Don't vote for him. Don't vote for anybody that's asked for his support or anybody that supports him. Stay away from him. And you know what? People aren't, because people are whores to the party letter after somebody's name on a ballot. They don't even look into him anymore. Oh, he's a Republican. Let me vote down the line. Look into your candidates. Principle over party. I preach that every time I talk. Principle over party, and you will have never wasted a vote. Being an educated voter ain't easy. It takes time. Yeah, and going back to schools, I agree. I think the Bible should be taught in schools. If for no other reason, it's one of the oldest historical books in the world. It has the first recorded murder, the first recorded war, the first recorded birth. I mean, there's so many firsts in there. Why shouldn't it be in school? I don't see a problem at all. But you got people who think it's okay to have books in school about, excuse my language, sucking dick and having butt sex, but they're against the Bible in school because the Bible's bad. You're forcing that down my kid's throat. I don't want anything like that forced down my kid's throat unless it's a book about oral sex. Do you see how these people are crazy? There's no problem with having God in schools. There's no problem with teaching religion. And if it has to be, teach it as a like an elective, world religion or Christianity or Judaism or whatever religion you want to teach, have it as an elective and let people choose if they want to. But yeah, I think that should be back in school. I see no problem with God in school. Never have it. Like I said before, even if you don't believe in God and you live your life according to the Bible and its tenets, your life is going to be great. You're not going to hurt anybody. You're going to take care of your family. You're going to live a good life. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I firmly believe God should be back in schools. I do. I don't see a problem with that at all. And if there is a problem for some people, make it an elective. Problem solved. They can't bitch. But they will. Because the people that are complaining are the ones that want to talk about Paul giving Mike a hand job in a book, and that's acceptable. I'm going to stop because I'm going to go off on a tangent. And I always go off on tangents, and I got to stop that. I apologize. So yeah, back to stay away from politicians. All of a sudden they're popping up on your feeds or in your mail or on the radio. All of a sudden, stay away from them. Stay away from them because they're not about public service. They're about self-service and getting reelected or getting promoted to another position. Stay away from it. Stay away from them. And I don't know if Jamie didn't cover this, but another thing about the Board of Education where I'm from, they were investigated by the Department of Justice 2 years ago and found they had violated on 10,000 different incidents. 10,000 times they had violated the civil rights of special needs students in Frederick County. They did that through over restraint or over solitary, like they put them in rooms by themselves. 10,000 times it was unnecessary. Unnecessary. And they were found guilty. The DOJ found this report. You can find it online. DOJ report, Frederick County Public Schools, Maryland. The Board of Education at the time knew. There was another report came out that parents said they called the Board of Education. They called the president of the Board of Education, Brad Young, and talked to, I believe, the superintendent at the time. And nothing happened. Nothing happened. That's why I tell you, educate yourself on candidates. Because that moron Brad Young got a promotion to county council. And then the morons in the county council made him president of the county council. And the dude's got blood on his hands. Never been held accountable for anything. Nobody's ever been held accountable for anything. It's like the DOJ report didn't happen. It doesn't matter. So yeah, please educate yourself on these on candidates in your area because you might be surprised what you find. That's what happens when you have people that don't pay attention to who's running and just vote for a party. You don't know about the stuff they've done or said or been a part of. Make that a priority to learn about your candidates. Educate yourself on the candidates. I'm not talking spending months and months. Spend a day, spend half a day looking at the candidates you want to support and see what they've done in the past. If they've never run for office before and they've been in the private sector, find out if they've businesses they've started or where they've managed and find out how they did there. You can educate yourself on anybody. You have no excuse now with the internet. No excuse. It's really that simple. So yeah, Jamie Brennan is a conservative and she gave you her websites and stuff. If you need them, let me know and I'll post them for you. Like she said, you don't have to have kids in school to support a Board of Education candidate. Your taxes, a majority of I think it's like 53% in Frederick County property tax goes to the Board of Education. And like she said, their budget's like $945 million. They did ask for 993, but they whittled it down. So next year, I can almost guarantee you, Frederick County Public Schools will have over $1 billion budget. That is more than the gross national product for some small third world nations. We're going to have $1 billion invested in our Board of Education, and they still think having porn in school libraries is acceptable. So look into your Board of Education, because like I said, that is the most important election, the most important thing you're going to vote for in your entire lifetime. They are molding children. And if you don't think it's important, look at Antifa and look at Black Lives Matter and all the young people out there showing their ass. They're all from public school. And that doesn't advocate parents. If you're a parent of a child in school, you need to be involved. Be involved. Ask what they did in their day. Look at their textbooks. Look at their homework. Be involved. Don't assume the school's doing good by your child. Don't assume that. It's really that simple. Be involved. Accountability. That's what I preach all the time. Accountability. Be accountable for your children while they're in school. Be a parent. Stop trying to be a friend. be a parent. If you're doing the parent thing right, they're going to hate you every once in a while and not talk to you and be angry with you. That just means you're doing your job right. If you put your kids' needs and safety and healthy in front of being liked, they're going to grow up and be good kids. And when they get older, take my word for it, they're going to know what you did. They're going to come back and tell you, hey, thanks, I appreciate that. I know why you did what you did. Okay, one last thing, and then I'm going to let you all go. I've kept you long enough. I apologize. I wrote like a little thing down that I wanted to read to everybody, and it's just how I feel. The Democratic Party's leadership has been a catastrophic failure for America. That goes without saying. They have utterly failed to secure our borders, allowing illegal immigrants to surge and leaving our nation vulnerable to crime, drugs, and terrorism. Again, that goes without saying. Their inaction is a slap in the face to every hardworking American who has demanded a safe and sovereign country. And it's also a kick in the crotch to everyone that came to this country, followed the rules, and became a citizen. It's not all. They are also hell-bent on trampling our sacred right to free speech. They use censorship, intimidation, and outright lies to silence dissenting voices, stifling the very foundation of our democracy. But they see no problem with pornography in schools. And if that wasn't enough, they're determined to gut the Second Amendment, leaving law-abiding citizens defenseless against the tyrannical government and violent criminals. Their war on our constitutional rights is a betrayal of the highest honor or highest order. Police officers, I've seen sheriffs on the news that said, hey, you call us, it takes us 10 minutes to get there. A lot can happen to you in 10 minutes. That's why we need the Second Amendment, and also to fight back a tyrannical government. You got to remember, when they wrote the Second Amendment in the Constitution, they had just got done fighting a war against a tyrannical government. That was fresh in their minds. But their failures don't stop there. They've turned their backs on our closest and most steadfast ally in the Middle East, Israel, emboldening terrorist regimes and endangering the stability of the entire Middle East. Their anti-Semitic rhetoric and actions are a stain on our nation's conscience. Recently, Israel did an attack and killed some folks, and it was all over the news how they got to stop. And then I read that Hamas guard killed an Israeli hostage because he was upset about something. It was revenge, and not a goddamn word from any of the news stations about how Hamas needs to stop. They need to put down their arms. Not a word. The man killed a hostage, tied up and bound, and killed a hostage. And mum is the word from everybody. But God forbid Israel defend itself, and that's front page news. I mean, I don't know what else you need to hear to know that anti-Semites are running rampant. The Democrats' party's leadership has failed America in every possible way. They're more concerned with appeasing their racial radical base than they are doing what's right for our country. It's time to hold them accountable for their failures and demand a new generation of leaders who will stand up for America's values, security, and freedom. No one person will be able to correct all the wrong perpetrated by the Democrats on this country, but it can start with one person, Trump. He's a step in the right direction, and he can get us back on the right path, the path of prosperity and the path of national pride. He's not going to be able to solve it all, but he's going to get us back on that path. That's why you need to come out and support Trump. It's either him or we get that moron that has accomplished nothing in 3 years, but is telling everybody if she gets elected, what she should have been doing, she's going to start doing. Trump. That's the only choice. If you have an IQ above a flip-flop, he is the only choice there is. It's that simple. They've tried killing the man. They've tried incarcerating the man. They've trumped up charges against him, and he's still there. You only catch flack when you're over the target, and he's catching a lot of flack. So that should be all you need to know. He needs support. It's really that simple. Well, I've kept you long enough, and I hope I haven't bored you to death, and I hope you're not like, oh, my God, that guy just talks and talks and talks and talks. I hope some of what I said resonates. And if you don't agree with me, please tell me you don't agree with me. We can have a conversation, and maybe you can change my train of thought, or I can change yours, or we'll just walk away agreeing to disagree. I want to let everybody know that the Patriots Prayer Network has a lot of great people on it. We have Alexandra Levine, who's on Tuesdays at 9. Great show, great person, fellow tribeswoman. You got to watch them, watch her. The base mother, Elena, was on here a second ago. I don't see her anymore. Great show. She's all about school. She knows more about that kind of stuff than I do. Watch her. Great shows. Lots of great shows on the Patriot Prayers Network. Follow us on Rumble. Be involved. We're crowdfunded, so if you hit lotto, feel free to send us $1 million. That would be great. We won't turn it down. But seriously, we're crowdfunded. Some of the things we want to do, we really can't, because there's a lot of us. We're spread around the country. So if you could donate $5 or $50 or $500 or whatever, helps. It all helps. Helps us do things that we want to do. Oh, Elena's still here. I didn't want to say you weren't, but so she's got the base mother, great show. Watch her too. She's on Wednesdays and Fridays. Wednesdays at noon, Fridays at 9, I believe. If I'm not, she'll correct me. So both of those ladies are incredible. Watch them. The good shows, very passionate, and they know what they're talking about. They're not talking out of their butts. They know exactly what they're talking about. So follow the Patriots Prayer on Rumble. You can follow me on X. It's right down here on the left side, conservative corner at X. I'm on Facebook. Look me up. Follow me there. But thanks for hanging out with me. I know you have other things you could do. So I appreciate you spending time with me on Sundays at 7, every Sunday at 7. I appreciate it. I'm sorry. I missed most of your show. Did ever hear about Zero Eyes? What did you talk about? No, I haven't. But I'll look into it. Or if you want to, send me a message and let me know what's going on, and I'll talk about it next time. But yeah, every Sunday at 7, I'm on here. Follow us on Rumble. Make sure you follow us on Rumble. It's important. We get more done from Rumble than anything else. X is really good, but Rumble's more about free speech. I'm not worried about what I say there getting me kicked off, as opposed to Facebook. If I sneeze, they're going to restrict me and kick me off. So yeah, follow us on Rumble. Definitely follow us on X. Follow us wherever you can. We appreciate the support. It means a lot to us. But yeah, I've been on for an hour and 8 minutes. So I want to thank Jamie Bren for being on again. She's running for Board of Education in Frederick County. If you want to help her, send some money her way. I mean, running a campaign ain't cheap. I ran. It's not cheap. And it doesn't have to be in your area to support a candidate that you think can do some good. That's what we need to do. We got to support candidates that'll do good. It's really that important. But again, thank you for coming. I will be back on next Sunday at 7. You got a question about what I've said, you can contact me at X, Facebook. On Facebook, it's the Conservative Corner. I'm very easy to get a hold of. Ask any question you want. I'm going to give you an answer, and it's going to be the truth. You may not like it, but at least you'll know where I stand. So keep that in mind. So again, this is the Conservative Corner. I'm Seth Eisenberg, and please keep in mind, 100% of the time, without fail, principle over party, and you will never, ever, ever cast a bad vote.